Welcome back, everybody, to the fourth episode of the Tiger View podcast. As always, it's your co-host Gavin and Dawson. And Dawson, we're already on the fourth episode, man. It's crazy. It felt like we just started this thing, but we're already on the fourth episode. So, what do you think about that, man?
Yeah, I mean it's been exciting. It's been fun. Last week we were kind of remote, shooting from Death Valley, and now we're kind of back in our normal spot. So, I'm excited for it, ready to go.
Yeah, I can't lie. I kind of thought it was kind of cool that we kind of went off the rip last time out and just kind of roll with it and had a different little scenery change for that third episode, but we're uh back to our normal thing this week. But just want to give a quick shout out to our listeners. Just thank you for keeping on supporting us and just make sure you like and subscribe, especially on YouTube and then wherever you get your podcast for the audio as well. But for this episode, as always, we're gonna talk on baseball, the baseball series, and then we're kind of gonna roll into the softball series as well. And then we're going to talk about some big quarterback changes that have happened around college football. And then we're going to grow into some recruiting stuff and then also transfer portal stuff with men's and women's basketball. And then just the schedule for the upcoming week. So, first things first, like we always do, we're just going to roll into the baseball series recap. Tigers took game one, 11-1 in 7 innings. And then yesterday they kind of had a shootout with a 11-10 win, back and forth battle with Stanford, and then today in the finale it just didn't go the way Eric Backage and his company would wanted with an 11-6 loss, but still another ACC series win, and just kind of moving on to this coming up week with Louisville coming into town. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought it
Um,
was a good good opening Friday. Knaak pitched a really good game. He went 6 innings, two hit ball, one run ball. I mean, that's all you can ask for, right? I mean, guys hit the ball well. We got out of the game quick, so that's all you can ask for. And my evaluation on game two is it's another Ethan Darden, uh, I guess you would say wasted start, it feels like at this point. He had a really strong start to the year, and I was really thinking he was making some serious progress compared to last year. But he comes out Saturday and he doesn't even get through 2 innings. He goes one and a half, six hit, three earned runs, 5 runs given up, or three earned runs. He faces 11 batters, but strikes out two. A little bit of that, I think, was his defense not helping him out a lot. It just does feel like he's having some bad luck. But at the end of the day, when you're a Saturday pitcher at a place like Clemson, you're almost expected to. You got to get over that. You got to pitch around that. You got to make adjustments. But he just has struggled right now, and I'm kind of wondering, how long is his leash going to be? Especially this close to the regional.
Yeah, man, going back to Aidan Knaak first, I mean, just that 11-1 win and just his pitching performance on the mound, it kind of just shows you how much you really appreciate Aidan Knaak because after that, the next two games, they were just, I mean, battles with Darden and then BJ Bailey on the mound as well. So, I mean, Knaak, like I always said, he's been the guy on Friday, but then Darden, he's kind of slacked up a little bit, and then Bailey was doing good, and then he just kind of didn't have his day to day either. But I mean, we got to get something rolling on the pitching side because I mean, after Aiden Knaak, you kind of question what's up with this team. But and then Lucas Malstead coming out the bullpen, he's been automatic right there. He's already up to 12 saves on the year, which leads the nation. And then also you had Titsworth that came out the bullpen one of those games, but then after that, it's just been kind of a bumpy start on the mound for the Tigers.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, Malstead to me has really been a bright spot for us. He's come in and he's done everything you asked of him. He doesn't throw, super hard, but with him throwing submarine, it really throws off the timing of a lot of hitters. So I mean, hey, if he can keep that rolling, I do feel confident, and we got at least one bullpen guy that I feel really strong about.
Yeah, also talking on Lucas Molstad, Eric Backage after the post-game press conference on Saturday, he was like, make sure you go check out his company that he made. It's called SubU. So make sure you go check out his company on Instagram. He posted some really good content on there just about his ways of pitching. And I'm guessing if you're a younger baseball player and you want to kind of learn to pitch submarine, then kind of hit him up for that. But kind of rolling into the offensive side of things, Jacob Jarrell had a very hot weekend. he hit 4 home runs in 3 games. I mean, and then one of them ended up in the camera well in center field, which I thought was pretty cool. But JJ's definitely swinging a hot bat out there.
Yeah, he's really come on of late, and I believe it was Friday. He actually had a might have been it could have been Saturday, but one of those games he let a ball go by him, or it could have been a weekday game. Honestly, it's hard to remember. My days are getting mixed up, but he let a ball go by him at back there at catcher, and I've kind of been critical of him this year, blocking up balls. But when you come out this week and you're on fire like you are, and you're hitting all these home runs, it kind of makes up for it, in a way. When your catcher can come out and hit 4 home runs in a week, I mean that really changes the dynamic, especially a guy like him to where in the past, he hasn't been the best hitter on the team, but we knew he had power. It's good to just see him be able to unlock a little bit of that this week.
Yeah, it was that game on Wednesday against Gardner Webb. He hit those two
Mhm.
home runs, and they were in left field, and they were basically in the same spot. But just he's been showing off his raw power as of late. And then also going along with that, Colin Priest has been swinging a hot bat, along with Josh Pano and Luke Gaffney. They all three had a pretty good weekend, and I mean, you just love to see it because I mean, whenever the pitching really hasn't been there, these guys have been kind of trying to spark that offense up just to keep them in games, you know.
Yeah. Colin Priest, Friday and Saturday going 2 of 3. That's really good. He's really improved. He's gotten a lot better as a hitter and being able to influence the game there.
Yeah, so the Tigers now focus on Louisville. No midweek game this week, so kind of get a little bit more rest for the week, and you ain't got to worry about a midweek. But Louisville coming in, that's another great team. They've always been a great team in the ACC, and we've always had our battles with them too.
Yeah, and to touch on today's game, I didn't get to see a ton of it, but it was really it felt weird from the start. I mean, 4 pitches in, it was Stanford had grabbed the lead, hit one out. I mean, it was just an odd game. BJ Bailey, he just didn't have it today. For whatever reason, he goes 5-2. He gives up he goes 4 innings actually, and gives up 7 earned runs. That's just not a recipe for success. And I mean, we can look at the bullpen and Hudson Lee, he gives up 3 earned runs. Chance Fitzgerald gives up one. Jacob McGovern doesn't give up anything. But I mean, we just can't have that happening this late in the year. I mean, I understand that it is a Sunday game, but if we are looking to make a World Series run and we are looking to be a top team in the country, you can't have question marks on Saturday and Sunday and just say, "Hey, we're just going to hope our offense can score 9 or 10 runs." And truth of the matter is, I got one pitcher right now that's our starter that I can look at and say, he can go flat out win us a game, and that's Aidan Knaak. Nobody else right now on the team is really jumping out to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, Canuck, it's been him and then who else, you know? So, definitely you got to figure something out because that's definitely not the recipe to get you to Omaha. Because I mean, you got to win a bunch of games in that span, and I mean, you can't rely on Aiden Canuck to go out there every time and do what he does. So you definitely have to have those other people who can step up as well and just give you that championship feel with your team.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there anything else you want to add on the baseball side? I think pretty much
Not a
covered.
whole lot. Not a whole lot. I wasn't really, I wasn't pleased watching this weekend. Even though we do get a win yesterday, it like I said, I mean, it just feels like a weekend to where you've got to dominate. You've got to start showing out. And to me, our ceiling to me has kind of been lowered due to our inability to pitch because
Mhm.
we can't rely on that in our super regional is that we're just going to score 10 runs. And to me, I originally had us in an Omaha 8 in my preseason, but it's making me wonder right now with our starting pitching issues so far. And hopefully we can get Talon Bell to warm up and him come around and Michael Gillen will add us some support and hey, maybe this was just a bad game from BJ Bailey. I think he's earned the right to just get the benefit of the doubt. Hey, we're looking forward to him coming back next Sunday most likely and pitching a good game. So, we'll see.
Yeah, that's what Eric Backers was saying on Saturday night in the presser. He was like, BJ Bailey's earned this opportunity, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be him going forth. So, I mean, he's, like we said, he's earned it. And then also, shout out to our guy, Talon Bell. I know me and you's pretty high on him, but, I mean, I can't wait till he gets to go longer and longer in those games as well.
hmm Also, TP Whitworth as well. I know he didn't do a ton this weekend, but he did get to start. He did get starts on Friday, Saturday, so he's kind of getting experience a little bit. He had a hit Friday, and man, I got to question him. I got to ask him, next time I see him, what's going on with the helmet, man? What's
Yeah.
going on? What do you think?
Yeah, I did kind of see that. It was the all purple one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It has some people going crazy on Twitter for some reason, but yeah, I mean that's just some minor stuff. But it's always good for him to get those back-to-back starts, and just he needs more experience, and he'll get that along the way. But I'm really excited to watch him too, being the two-way player that he is.
Hmm.
All right. Well, moving into the softball series, softball actually took the sweep in Raleigh against NC State this weekend, winning game one 17-3, and then game two in kind of a closer battle 8-7, and then finishing it off this evening with the 8-3 win. And in this series, Maddie Moore kind of made some Clemson softball history as she surpassed Mackenzie Clark and the all-time stolen base leader for Clemson softball, and then also Reese Basinger notched up her 50th career win in the circle. And also, John Rittman's Tigers have been hot. They have been ranked as high as 16 in the polls. And then I've also seen some projections where they're even projected to host a regional as well. So just kind of story in itself. Like we said before, they kind of struggled to begin with, but now they've been hot. So, and then they got another test coming up this week with the Gamecocks coming to Tiger Town on Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm excited for that game. I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch it, but that's going to be a fun game to watch. South Carolina's been really good this year, and Clemson's come on of late. They started slow. They had that tough tournament down there in Florida, I believe, and a lot of people jumped ship on them. And my belief was, hey, let's stick with them. These girls can play. They could hit. We saw the ability. They just had to learn to win. And in a season like this, you go down the stretch and now you're figuring out stuff, you're starting to put it together, and hopefully you can start playing your best ball come tournament time.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, this team's been led by the freshmen, and you kind of got to get them settled up in there, and they have with all those freshmen that have been leading the way, along with some of the veterans. But it's just good to see John Rittman and his squad get hot once postseason starts to come here soon. And they did also clinch a spot in the ACC softball tournament series, which is good as well. So definitely excited to keep watching them play, and hoping they can make a deep run as well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So the big story of the week, and I know I might butcher his name, but Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava, and the situation with him, and just that's kind of brought on some bigger news in the college football landscape, especially with the quarterback. So I know that's a story that you covered this week, Dawson. Make sure you check it out on tigerviewmedia.com. But just kind of want your thoughts on that, and just yeah, your insights on it.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure on how to say his last name either, but
You could just say Nico if you
we're just
want.
gonna go with Nico
Yeah.
Iamaleava. We're gonna
I'm
say
not, yeah,
Iamaleava because that's he's on his way out of Knoxville.
yeah,
So yeah, I found out around the same time as pretty much everyone else did. I didn't really have any insight on this. And basically, from my understanding, the story was that Nico and his team at least was requesting before December that he wanted to, a little over $2 million pay bump. And to me is I see two sides of this. I see the side that says, there's no way he can be asking for this $2 million bump when he had a season like he did, really a underperforming season. And to be honest, if you were to ask a Tennessee fan who got you to the playoffs, Dylan Sampson or Nico, 99% of the time they're going to say the defense and Dylan Sampson dragged them into the playoff. But I see the other side of it where it is you look at Carson Beck. And you've heard the numbers thrown out about him. You've heard 8 million. I don't think he's getting paid 8 million, but you've heard a bunch of numbers thrown out there, and you've got people at Nico's camp saying, "Hey, we think we're better than Carson Beck," and I would have to tend to agree with him. I really do think Nico's a pound for pound talent. He's better than Carson, so I don't really blame them on that side of the ball for trying to get what they feel Nico's worth. But at the same time, I really, credit Tennessee and Josh Heupel for not backing down on this situation and not caving. I really think that sets a precedent across college football to say, put our foot down. Eventually you got to say no. You gotta have a cutoff point at one point. So I do think that was really good by Tennessee to say no, and I just want to say whoever advised Nico to sit out of practices, I mean, that is a terrible idea. That's the last thing you want to do. You don't have the leverage in this situation. If you want to renegotiate your contract, sitting out of practices right before the spring game is just not the way to do it at all.
Yeah, for sure. Like you were saying with Josh Heupel, I mean, he really didn't wait. He was just like, we decided to move on from him. Like he wasn't even toying with the situation at all. He was just like, listen, we're not going to deal with this. We got our own football stuff that we got to take care of. And like you were saying, it's just not wise of him to sit out like right before a spring game and everything. So, but that really makes you kind of be grateful for the guys on our team, Cade Klubnik, Christopher Vazina. It just makes you really appreciate those guys just a tad bit more and just what Dabo's preached over on his side, just with player retention and everything else. But it kind of really makes you appreciate those guys who are under center for us.
Yeah, and I mean, I wrote the article kind of comparing it to a K club net being an exception, not the rule. And listen, guys, people don't want to think about it, but it was very easy for Cade to have checked out on us after 2023. You know, he had teams contacting him. He's been very open to talk about that. And, he talked about his meeting with Dabo, and Dabo saying that, hey, he's got quarterbacks that want to come play here, but he's going to stick with Cade. In a situation like that, it would have been easy for Cade to ask for a little bit more money, try to make his name more marketable to secure his future. And, Dabo say, no, we're not going to do that. And boom, Cade hits the road. So it would have been a very similar situation for us. But, thank God that a guy like Cade, he's made of the right stuff. I tell you that. Him and Chris Vazina, I mean, we got a good quarterback room there. And
Yeah,
I went on to a point in my article talking about how the modern day recruiting is just changed so much. In years past, even when we got Trevor Lawrence and guys like that, was if you got the number one quarterback in the country, you could trust that you could get that quarterback. He could start his freshman year, or he could sit the bench for a year to develop under you, and he would be ready to go. In today's world, that's just not the case anymore. These guys want to start day one regardless. All of the 5 stars from 2023 have hit the road, except for Arch Manning, who comes from a different cloth. Cade Klubnik recently talked about it in a podcast that most of the guys that he graduated with, the quarterbacks, none of those guys are at their original schools. It's just the market now is so crazy. In Nico's example, you paid him, $2 million for his freshman season, and however much money you paid him to get him to Tennessee. Let's say you got $4.5 million invested into your quarterback, and then 8 months later he's gone, totally gone. You've burned through that money that quickly, and now you're looking for the next guy. I mean, there's plenty of quarterbacks now to where the risk reward for a top level quarterback is so dangerous. You're gonna have to spend $3 to $4 million right now to get a top 5 quarterback out of high school and a guy who may never even play a snap for you. In many cases now, it's just so different. And we're really hoping that the House versus NCAA versus House settlement will start to fix things, and revenue sharing will come into play, and guys will start to make relative money rather than one guy is taking up a huge piece of the pie.
yeah, for sure. And just Nico holding out, that kind of something you only really see in the pros, but now it's kind of making its way over to the college landscape, and that only makes you think, oh, since he's going to hold out, it's probably going to create a new wave of holdouts in college football, and that's just something we thought we'd never see at all. And just, I mean, also the tweets I've seen tweeted out by KJ Henry and Xavier Thomas, those future Tigers, talking about Dabo was right. So, I mean, I'm just glad that those guys are out there voicing their opinions. And I mean, in my opinion, I think Dabo was right. And I mean, I know you probably agree too.
Yeah, yeah, I do. A lot of people did criticize Dabo whenever he was I don't want to say he was against players being paid, but he did warn about the side effects of this. And people said he was just hating, that he was being selfish, that he wanted everything for himself. But in reality, he knows what's right and what's wrong for his players. And he saw, much like Nick Saban predicted, they saw issues with this. And it feels like to me that the NCAA, they knew about these issues as well, that this would happen. They really didn't care. And a lot of the people driving this, they didn't care either. You know, this was a way that money could get their hands into football up front. Now you've got the biggest brands in football being able to buy themselves into wins again. You've got Michigan able to buy their way into wins. Ohio State guys that, um, in the past did have to rely on skill and recruiting like everybody else. Now they're able to, put up these large sums of money and be able to buy their way into recruiting. Now, whether that translates into, consistently winning national championships, not just a one-off year like Ohio State this year, we'll never know because revenue sharing is about to take over. So, I think if we would have had to deal with, I guess how Dabo described it as the wild, wild west for, a long term, I think we would have had a lot of problems in football. And you would have seen situations like Nico pop up everywhere. But, it's really good on Tennessee there for putting their foot down and saying no because Nico botched this little hold in situation. I think that's going to prevent a lot of other players from trying to do the same.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. And like I said, I feel like this might be just the first of it because, I mean, you see new things happening every day with the new landscape of college athletics and especially with football. But it just makes you really question on what the future is going to be like for college football because I know there's other things that are obviously bound to happen with what's going on now in that landscape.
Yeah, exactly. It's just crazy, man. It's nothing like what we saw when we were coming up and watching football.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have to worry about, oh, is so and so gonna sign a new contract for next year? Like that's the only things you heard in the NFL. Like you knew if a guy was a freshman or a sophomore, oh, he'll be back next year. We can't wait to see him and watch him play. But now it's just once the year's over, you're really like, oh, is he gonna come back? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, it's just the times we live in now, and like you said, it's nothing to what we were used to watching coming
Hmm.
up.
Exactly.
All right, well, moving on. One big recruitment that we've been looking on is wide receiver Gordon Sellars out of the Charlotte area. So I'm gonna let you lead with that, Dawson. I know you want to talk on that.
Yeah, he's been a guy that we've been tracking for a while here, over on Clemson's side. And he, great player out of Providence Day. Um, a lot of people did think that he was probably going to stay local. And, right now, to the best of my knowledge, that, he's locked in as a Clemson Tiger. That's not my official prediction. That's what 24/7 says. He went to South Carolina on his visit this past weekend. And funny enough, while he was down there, the Big Spur logged in a Clemson prediction for him. So, whatever they heard is, getting everything else that we're seeing. So, to me, he's a Clemson Tiger. He's a great player. He's another great addition that we're going to have. 24/7 has him as the 34th composite wide receiver. I think he's in my book, he's a little higher. They have him as just the 41st best on their side, but on three, I'm sure has him as a little bump. But he's still a composite 4 star. He's a great athlete, and if we can lock this guy down, that's going to be another great wide receiver grab for 2026.
Yeah, for sure. That class has already been turning some heads, but like you were saying, 24/7, Crystal balled him to Clemson. But I was looking on his X account today, X Twitter, whatever. I call it Twitter still, but he recently got a new offer from Notre Dame, and he's gonna go check out Notre Dame on Tuesday with his commitment being on the 18th. So I hope those crystal ball projections are right for us, because I'd love to have Gordon Sellers come on to Tiger Town.
Yeah, and the funniest one, I think one of the crystal balls was Anna Adams for 24/7 Sports, and I don't know if anybody listening or watching to this kind of knows the joke about whoever Anna Adams picks for your school. Let's just hope she's right. Let's just hope she's right. Let's hope it's not a switcheroo.
Yeah,
Because the
for sure.
last place I want him to go is the school down the road from us.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, well, moving on now. We really didn't get to cover it last week because it was a spring game special. But Brad Brownell's been cooking, but not Brad Brownell's been cooking, but also Sean Poppy's been cooking as well. But we'll start on the men's side of things. RJ Godfrey, he's coming back home. He took a year to Georgia, but he just realized that Tiger Town was better, and he loves it here. And then Carter Welling and Nick Davison, two names that Dawson pointed out on the second episode of the Tiger View podcast. And then not too long ago today, Ephraim Johnson from UAB coming to the Tigers as well.
Yeah, I mean Carter Welling, that was a guy that man, it felt like the worst kept secret of all. It felt like we all knew that he was coming to Clemson and we were all kind of just sitting around waiting to post that article. We had him and we had I'm not going to speak on a couple other guys who we had drawn up, but we had a lot of guys that we knew that were, locked in with Clemson just waiting to post that article. And it's a good feeling when you can be in a situation like that to where now you're just waiting for pen to hit the paper. That's just a great feeling.
Yeah, I know. Between me, you, and Charles, we were just sitting there waiting for those articles to get posted because I know going through the website, I just seen it there, and I was like, man, I'm just waiting for this to happen. And all you got to do is do one click of a button, and bam, it's out. But talking about some former Tigers as well. Chauncey Wiggins, he's moving on to FSU. He's staying in the ACC, and then also, I guess I kind of broke the news first on Dale Jones. I really don't know. I was
Yeah.
scrolling on Instagram, and I was like, "Dang, Dale Jones!" And it was like a couple seconds ago, and I was like, "Let me throw this up on the X," and I mean, it kind of blew up on everything. But Dale Jones is going to Radford, a little bit smaller school, and a bunch of people had a bunch of questions on that. But yeah, what are your thoughts of those two Tigers heading elsewhere to different schools?
Yeah, Chauncey, I see a lot of people on X bashing him, and was I impressed with his play? Not at all, but look, he just didn't have it. A change of scenery is probably what was best for him, and we wish him the best. And Dale Jones, I don't know if we stated it before, but that was probably another move that we were expecting to see coming just from his lack of playing time down the stretch. And a lot of people were shocked by him going to Radford, but I kind of took a couple of minutes and really thought on it a lot, and I realized he can go to a school like that, start and put up really good numbers this year, and then bam, he's right back in the portal, and he's going to make a lot of money. If he when he comes out, if he has a really good year, which I'm betting that he's betting on himself right here, which is exactly it's nothing like special in today's world. We see this all the time. I don't know why people are so shocked at it. You go to football and I know tons of high level talent that go to high level schools, don't play a lot, or maybe their needs aren't being met, and bam, they transfer to a smaller school and put up crazy numbers, and then bam, a year later, they're back in the portal, they're back at a high level school, and they're making a ton of money. So to me, this move by Dale Jones does make sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like I was saying on football, it's just the new kind of landscape we're in with college athletics as a whole. But I mean, you can't help but root for him wanting to go develop more. And then, I mean, we'll like you were saying, we'll probably see him at another big time school. But I mean, yeah, just I don't know, just big big thanks to those guys for contributing what they did this past season. But we wish them best of luck along the way at their new schools now. All right. Well, moving over to the women's basketball side of things, I don't know how much you're into with the women's basketball, but I got the chance to cover them this year and kind of fell in love with it and love what Coach Poppy's doing on that side of the ball with the women. But I might butcher this first name, but she came from Georgia Tech. She's Lithuanian, but her name's Rosna Augustinate. I don't know. I hope I'm not butchering that too bad. And then Rachel Rose from Wofford, and then Demira Hines from Wake Forest and Taylor Johnson Matthews, the latest one from DePaul. But those are just four names right there that Coach Poppy's grabbed out the portal, and he's looking to build up this team. And I mean, they had a promising start this year, and I just love what he's building along the way with recruits coming in as well. But I mean, it won't be long before Coach Poppy's got that program turned around and has us competing for ACC championships and all that moving forward.
Yeah, he's really turned that program around. I would even look at the South Carolina game. The year previous before he got here, I can't remember the point differential, but when we played him this year, we still got beat pretty badly, but it was a totally different turnaround. The vibe felt different. I just think the team overall now is just in such a healthy spot. I love Coach Poppy. It was his birthday the other day. I wished him happy birthday. He said thank you. So, that's cross that off my bucket list. Number two, what was unfortunate, it ties into men's basketball a little bit. Hannah Cole, her boyfriend was in the portal. And, maybe he was a guy that, I don't know if we were looking at all, but he did end up going to West Virginia. So, that would have been great to grab him. They could have been a bit of a power couple in Clemson basketball.
Yeah, for sure. That would have been cool to see. But like you were saying on Coach Poppy's birthday, I wished him a happy birthday too, and he liked it or whatever. But besides, I mean, obviously Dabo and Eric Backage, Coach Poppy's been my favorite coach. To cover with his team, and it's just awesome going to his press conferences. He was one of the first coaches I asked a question to, and I mean, you could just tell how appreciative he is, and he's just a real humble guy, and he really believes in those girls, just like with life outside of basketball, not. I mean, their performance on the court is important, but he's more worried about what they're doing out of the court and just making sure they're doing the right thing at all the times because he's big on you never know who might see you and just always say hi to somebody or open a door because it really does go a long ways.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited that he's leading our team.
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait to see what Coach Poppy can do in year two coming up next year and then in a couple years down the road as well. But man, this episode is really flown by, Dawson. So I'm already on kind of wrapping it up with the schedule for the upcoming week. So baseball, like I said earlier, no midweek game this week, so they can get a little bit of rest over there at Duck Kingsmore Stadium. But then they'll be right back in action on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with Easter being on Sunday, so they'll get a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series out of that with a tough Louisville team coming into DKS and just another opportunity for the Tigers to take another ACC series in which I believe they're 5-0 in this season. And then, like I said, with softball, they have a big midweek game versus the Gamecocks. The Gamecocks coming to McWhorter on Tuesday night. And then their next ACC series will be back at McWhorter with also another Thursday, Friday, Saturday series versus Boston College. And we lose? You good?
Start there. Yeah.
You good?
Well,
Yeah, but Boston College coming to Tiger Town as well, and then can't forget about our lacrosse girls. Also playing at home on Thursday up at the Clemson lacrosse facility against Pitt. So yeah, just what are your final thoughts from the episode and just your takeaways from the week?
yeah, I do want to mention about lacrosse. That's a beautiful complex. There's not a whole lot of lacrosse schools around the country that have a great place like we do, and just a great program. It is pretty new, but I tell you what, I mean, I'm so glad that we have that here, and I really do think it helps the student body overall to be able to see that.
Yeah, for
And
sure. I mean, go ahead.
sorry, one of my
Mhm.
guess a couple of final takeaways. It's just been crazy this last couple of days. We had the Nico situation. It felt like we were all hands on deck to you know dive into that and let's see all of this. And there's rumors flying around about Dan Lanning, back channeling to Tennessee to tell him, I don't want to put something out like that because I don't have a way to confirm that. I take pride in what we write. And, if I'm to put something out like that just because I see it on the internet, I just feel like that's slack. You see everybody posting about that on Twitter, but I just don't feel like it's right for us to make an article. And, I don't think we ever will put out an article if we can't verify it or stand behind it ourselves. So,
Yeah.
just, one little rant there to talk about maybe people should be a little careful about what they see on Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, for sure. That's been my big thing ever since I started doing this. Just to make sure what you're putting out there is right and just don't try and cause too much commotion. Just really make sure you know what you're saying and don't try and spread any rumors, you don't want flying around that could cause a big head case.
Hmm.
But
Definitely.
also going back on the lacrosse side of things, I want to shout out Katie, who's been writing for us as well. She really didn't know much about lacrosse, but now she's kind of took it head on. And I was talking to her. Me and her were up in the press box during the spring game, and she's loved every second of it. So big shout out to Katie giving us the in-depth lacrosse news up there at the Clemson lacrosse facility. And speaking on that facility, I really think that's another thing that makes Clemson unique. Like we said, the only women's lacrosse facility with their own stadium as well. So that's just something that makes Clemson unique. And then also one thing I didn't put on here, but another thing I wanted to mention is the new Watt Family Performance Center. They've connected with the Gervais Gym, so just they finally completed that construction. But just from the videos and stuff I've seen and the pictures of the different teams working out in there, man, it's a beautiful facility, and that's just another thing that are really going to make recruits want to come to Clemson just with our in-depth buildings with player development and just health overall.
Yeah, definitely. One of these days they're gonna have to let us go in there and check it out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd love to get a workout in there or something just so I feel the part. But yeah, I think that'll do it, man. Just make sure you're following on Tiger View Media on social media on Instagram, X, and also TikTok as well. We've been making some TikToks and also Instagram Reels, so we're gonna start trying pushing that short form video content out there as well. And then, as always, make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you're watching the video on YouTube. We thank you for that, and if you're listening to the audio wherever you get your podcast, we thank you for listening as well. But just make sure you subscribe and just stay up with the latest news that me and Dawson is bringing out. But yeah, anything else you want to add, Dawson?
I don't, other than I am excited for another week of Clemson Athletics.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, me and Dawson's always going to be giving you the in-depth coverage of that, and just make sure you're following along because we really do appreciate it. And yeah, but anyways, with that, it's been the fourth episode of the Tiger View podcast, and it's been Gavin and Dawson with the fourth episode. So yeah, go Tigers, and we'll see you everybody.